Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Mike here from Comp3 Interactive. Just want to start by apologising for being so quiet on social media and on my Discord channel as of late. The reason being, I've got a new job. I'm now officially a web developer. So I've been taking a little bit of time just practicing that, getting into the swing of things. I'm sure you understand. But it can't get in the way of content now, can it? But before we go into the video, I'd just like to introduce our first official sponsor, Gigatank 3000, an up-and-coming two-man game development company. A lot of good things happening over there. Make sure you go and check them out on the website and on Twitter. I've got links in the bio. Thanks again, guys. So today we've got something quite simple but really useful. I know many of you may have in your game some sort of database where you have, for example, a list of all your enemies. Now this can get quite tedious when you're trying to pre-populate it before you build the game. For example, I've got a list of enemies here, there's only 4, but your game could have hundreds for all I know. And what we'd usually do, we'd be dragging and dropping every one of these into the list of our enemies. And then when we're done, we decide we want to add a new one. And we have to go in and we have to do that for every new enemy that we put in the game. And if we forget to do that, then that enemy isn't going to appear in our game. So what I'm going to show you how to do is programmatically initialize your databases, or any field for that matter, at the start of the game. Now, like I say, I've got 4 enemies here, which are just of type enemy type, the scriptable objects, and all they have on them is the enemy name. Obviously in your game you'd have these fully populated and ready to be implemented into your game. So let's start by opening up our database class. As you can see, really simple. All we have is a public array of our enemy type called all enemies, which is what we can see on our database object right here. So what do we actually want to do? Well, we don't want to drag and drop anything into the inspector. We want to have this game so when we press play, all of these enemies are loaded into our all enemies array automatically. Now this is really simple to do with something called resources. And as you can see, I already have the resources folder here. Now what's so special about the resources folder, I hear you cry? Well, resources is a reserved folder within Unity. And being that way, it has a set of special functions that are associated with it. So first thing you need to do is make sure that you have a resources folder inside your assets and make sure it's spelled correctly. If it isn't, then none of these functions will work because Unity looks specifically for a folder called resources. And then inside that we have our enemies folder, and then inside that we have our 4 enemies. So we can interrogate this resources folder and get its contents programmatically. So let's start with our start method. So whenever the start method runs, we want to grab all of those enemies from the resources folder. And the way that we can do that, really simple, is set all enemies equal to resources dot load all, and then load all allows a generic type to be passed in. So this will cast it to your type. In our instance, it's enemy type. So we want to find all enemy type objects that are held within resources. Now we don't need to type resources, that's inferred. So all we need to do is type in enemies, and we'll cap that off with a semicolon. And that is all we need to do. If we play our game, we should see that all 4 of our enemies are added into our array. So let's try that. Click play, and if we look over here in the inspector, we can see that automatically we have all 4 enemies. And now without dragging and dropping, if I create a new enemy, call it Mike from Comp3, and then we replay the game, we should see, without doing anything else, we now have 5 enemies. And we do, and there I am. But what about if we only want to get a specific enemy or a specific object and assign it to its own item? Well, that's just as simple. For example, if we create a public enemy type, and we'll just call it Mike, what we can do we can set Mike equal to resources.load. So this time we're telling Unity that we only want to get a single resource. Again, we'll pass in enemy type as its generic parameter, but this time we want to actually get a single file. So we'll set a path to enemies / Mike from comp3. So now this will look inside of our resources folder, inside of the enemies folder, and then try and find a resource called Mike from comp3, which we've just created. So if I play this, we should see that Mike gets pre-populated. And it does. So as you can see, this method really cuts down on the initialization of your game. Now, one thing I will say, resources.load is very performance heavy. So you do not want to be calling resources.load in your update, for example. Think of it as just an initialization step. So you never want it at runtime, or during the gameplay, should I say, but it's perfectly fine to have it during an initialization step and the initial loading of your game. You do see a lot of people online that say that you shouldn't really use resources.load, but I think it's perfectly fine to use in the right scenario, such as this. So this has been a very short video, but I'm sure that you guys can find a lot of uses for this, and I hope it comes in really handy. Now, we'll try and be a little bit more proactive with my Facebook and my Instagram and having a chat with you guys on Discord over the next couple of weeks. So make sure you drop by and say hello. And that is all I have for you today. So I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more bite-sized Unity hints and tips.